Hi, Kati. It's a pleasure to have you here in the second international conference of Sabancı University School of Languages. It's a pleasure, and your enlightening and inspiring talk was great. Thank you for that as well. I see a little pin on your jacket, so maybe we can start with that.
TIRF?
TIRF, TURF, right?
TURF.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It's been delightful to be here. It's been a great conference. Well, to start with TURF, TURF, TIRF stands for the International Research Foundation, and then the subtitle is for English Language Education. This is a foundation that was started by the TESOL Association in 1998, and our purpose is to raise funds for and distribute funds for research in our field. And it's been fun to come here because I've had an opportunity to talk about some research that I'm doing with some colleagues and to learn more about research that's being done in Turkey and the surrounding countries. So I'm very excited to have this chance to be here. It's my second term to Turkey, but my first time to Sabancı University.
It's good. I mean, you're doing a great job there, actually.
I'm really enjoying it. Thank you.
Speaking of research, so can we maybe go back to the research you've done with the students in Hong Kong, right? The dialogue journal research. There's a couple of questions I would like you to answer for us, maybe, or clarify for us.
Sure.
Well, the dialogue journals, I wonder how culturally appropriate they are. Do you think they would be culturally appropriate in all contexts?
You know, I've been wondering about this. I think some form of dialogue journal would be appropriate in many contexts, okay? Because as you know, what happens is usually the teacher starts it out by writing an entry to all the students in his or her class. And then the students are supposed to respond individually. And then from that, the teacher responds to them individually. And it begins this repeated dialogue, this ongoing dialogue. And in my case, the students wrote, beginning the second week of the term, they wrote a page for me every week and turned it in on Wednesday, and I responded to it and gave it back to them on Monday. And we did this for 13 weeks. And I think that what worked well was it gave my students an opportunity to communicate with me in the privacy of their own homes at their own pace. Because as you know, when we're in class, time is very precious, things move quickly, you're always in front of an audience unless it's a class of one. So I think for my Hong Kong students, the dialogue journals were really appropriate because it gave them opportunities to communicate in ways that our class time didn't let them do. And I think that's a really common situation in EFL classes around the world. Time in class is so precious. Opportunities for interaction outside of class in the target language are quite limited. So that exchange that happens in the dialogue journals is a really precious thing. It's the opportunity to use the language that they might not otherwise have. Now, I think that need is probably pretty common for English language learners around the world. What might matter in terms of cultural appropriacy is the prompts that we as teachers put to the learners in their dialogue journal assignments. You know, if I were teaching in some countries of the world, I probably would not assign a topic of abortion or a topic of homosexuality. You'd have to be very careful that the kinds of things that you have students write about in their dialogue journals are age appropriate and culturally appropriate. But I think the task in terms of ongoing reciprocal written exchanges between teachers and students can be highly beneficial for almost anybody. Yeah, that's actually very you're very right in that, because you know it's this spiral, I would say, relation is really very it's enriching both for the student and the teacher. I would also like you to give us some information about, or your opinion actually, about whether dialogue journals should be graded or corrected, or would it just flow in the very natural way they appear? You know, I really struggled with that. It's such a great question. What I ended up doing was requiring the dialogue journal and then giving the students just a plus, a check, or a minus rather than an A, B, C, or points on the system. And they very quickly realized what they needed to do in order to get a plus. And so for me, getting a plus just meant a sincere effort to communicate and fill a page with writing. Now, as I mentioned in my talk, some students tried to write really big. So it was easier to fill a page. But when I said, you know, this doesn't look like your normal writing. I've seen your writing on your worksheets, and this is not what you do, you know. So they kind of laughed and said, okay. So I don't mark or correct the papers in any way. It's an opportunity for the students to express their ideas and to work on their writing fluency. I'm not too worried about accuracy in the dialogue journals, though I will model correct responses when I see error patterns emerging. And the dialogue journals also give me clear ideas about, you know, if I see several students with the same repeated error, that tells me, okay, we need to do an in-class lesson focusing on the accuracy component here. So I require the journals. I indicate to the students something about the quality, but not with a grade. I don't know what other teachers have done. I haven't come across research that talks about whether or not the journals should be graded. Yeah.
How about the frequency then? Frequency and length, maybe, of the entries.
Okay, I really struggled with this. I went to Hong Kong on a sabbatical year and taught with a syllabus that was not a syllabus of my own devising. It was very interesting after so many years teaching to be working from a pre-existing syllabus. And the dialogue journals were required, and they were required every week. And I just thought, oh, that's going to be a lot of work. But then as we got into the rhythm of it, I thought, okay, this makes sense. I really like the idea of a weekly, very frequent, in my case weekly, dialogue journal exchange between the teacher and the student. And I think the fact that it was relatively brief made it a doable task for my students. I would characterize my learners there as lower intermediate, perhaps a few what I would call intermediate students. For them, producing a whole page in English, first of all, the assignment was a shock. They couldn't believe that I would really want that. They said, Miss, don't you mean a paragraph? No, I mean a page. You know? So I sort of lean towards the relatively brief but frequent assignment. Now my colleague, Dave Chiesa, who's working on the same research project with me, he was working with higher level students in China, and his students were going to be either English teachers or translators and interpreters. Their level of proficiency was higher, and he required 3 double-spaced typewritten pages every week.
That's quite frequent.
Yeah, and but he responded in less detail than I did. So as a teacher, you have to figure out the balance of what's going to work with the students to their benefit and what's going to be possible for you in terms of your time management. Because I really think it's important that we enjoy reading the students' dialogue journals and responding to them. If they become such a heavy burden that the task is onerous, then we're just going to be dashing off quick comments that aren't personalized, that aren't meaningful. So I prefer frequent, shorter dialogue and journal entries myself.
That actually takes us to what you said, what you call the participant. Teacher becomes the participant, right? You know, writing and responding to student entries. Thank you very much, Kati. This has been really very enlightening for us, and this is going to be put on our conference website.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me here. It's been a wonderful conference, and I really look forward to learning more about Sabancı and the teachers and students here in Turkey.
And we'll catch up later outside.
Great.
Thanks.